Tamara Coke, followed by Darren Suarez. Can we take a break after Tamara Cook before Darren Suarez, and then we'll have just a few more, but the reporter gets to make that request.
Sego, my name is Tamara Cook. I'm from the Akwesasne Mohawk Nation, and actually I would like to commend everybody before me that has spoke, and a lot of what they said, I really hope that when this is done and over, you actually take the time, and it not only affects your whole system and the way that you actually have to think about this, but it also goes to your heart. Right now, as one of the speakers said, they would give their life. That is one thing that we as Nkwe people are still here for. We're here to protect this earth. We still exist to protect our mother. That is our responsibility. We were not made extinct. You could not get rid of us. And we are not going anywhere. We will stand on the lines, we will stand in the front lines, and we will put a call out to our warriors. And they're all across the whole United States. They're all across the world. We have I Don't Know More that actually stands in the front lines. Not just here, Canada, China, all over the place. Right now, we have our brothers and sisters up in New Brunswick that are there constantly on a daily basis to stop any of this destruction that you guys are trying to do, that the outsiders are trying to do, that these oil companies are trying to come in and extract these natural resources that are supposed to make our living life so much easier. We're supposed to respect her. We're not supposed to destroy her. And right now, and I have to say that, unfortunately, he couldn't have been here, and it would have been great for him to actually be here, was Mr. Dennis Banks. And I'll tell you, after watching him and listening to him, he said that sooner or later you're going to actually have that reason to stand up and to say what you need to say. This is that reason. This is that time to actually stand up and to tell you that we're not going to go away. So I would hope that if that decision lies within you, that you're the ones who can decide whether or not we have this allowed here in New York State, that I would ask you to please let New York be the leader that we're supposed to be, and to show everybody else that we're not afraid to say no. To ban fracking is something that you're not afraid to say no to. That protecting your future, your grandchildren's future, protecting your water, your land, and your air, that's something that you hold more valuable than $1. One thing is that before, I don't know if you guys understand what the whole two-row wampum is. But what it does for our people is it represents 1,000 years of democratic principles that we shared with our brothers and sisters, even the new ones, including Thomas Jefferson and Ben Franklin, who openly acknowledged in speeches and writings our contribution formed the basis of the Constitution. We shared our belief that our leaders should represent and serve the people. We shared that what we call the Great Law, which is the natural law of human dignity that precedes and underlies all other laws. And it is important to the pursuant of all happiness that we the people now means and continues to mean we, all of us, who are Americans. So I would ask you to please at least be with the people on this. This is why you sit where you sit. This is why our government sits where our government sits, because we, the people, chose you. Now we're asking you to back us in what we want, because, like I said, we're not going to go away. We will stand on the front lines, and those calls will be put out.
Thank you very much. We have 3 more plus some second pass, but why don't you, it's up to you, Lisa.
Let's take a break, so I gotta change my paper.
Okay. We'll try to, how much time do you need? 5 minutes? Hi, so we're going to resume with Darren Suarez, to be followed by Dorothy Pomponio.
Well, thank you that we were able to take a small break. It was good that you were able to sort of rest your hands. So good afternoon. I'm Darren Suarez, the Director of Government Affairs for the Business Council of the State of New York. The Business Council is the leading business organization in New York State, representing the interests of small and large firms throughout the state, employing over 1.4 million people. On behalf of the members of the Business Council of New York State, I would like to thank the members of the New York State Energy Planning Board and all the staff in their respective agencies, commissions, and authorities for the developing the 2014 draft of State Energy Plan. There are numerous items that are contained in the 2014 State Energy Plan that the members of the Business Council support, from the overarching goals like improving energy affordability to initiatives like committing to supporting infrastructure improvements to encouraging increased use of alternative forms of transit. Additionally, the Business Council strongly supports the draft plan's acknowledgement of the power of the private sector to provide and improve our energy system's ability to meet the goals of the people of the state of New York. The Business Council's written comments on the draft plan will provide a more comprehensive review and constructive comments on the draft state energy plan. Our comments today will focus on a few select items. Specifically, our comments today will address the benefits of wholesale markets, transmission upgrades, and the climate change benefits of natural gas. In review, the state energy plan needs to ensure that it's important to recognize that what has worked and then to take steps to preserve it and duplicate it. The wholesale market has been successful, and the final state energy plan should recognize that New York now has a dynamic and competitive energy market where capital costs and associated risks of conventional projects are borne directly by private developers rather than public subsidies. It is important to note that the market is explicitly structured to provide price signals for new conventional generation, construction, repowering, and continued operations where such actions were cost-effective and appropriate in maintaining reliability. In large part due to New York's energy market design, New York electric customers have benefited from clean, more reliable energy generation as well as historically lower energy costs. Additionally, market-based solutions have met statewide reliability location price signals provided by New York's wholesale electric markets have traditionally encouraged investment in areas where there is demand for electricity. Like all markets, there are opportunities for review and provide minor adjustments to ensure efficient market outcomes that deliver reliable power to consumers. One area where the state can facilitate a more effective wholesale market is the improvement of pipelines and power lines. New York's current energy infrastructure, which includes 10,900 miles of high-voltage transmission lines, tens of thousands of natural gas transmission lines, and 500 generators, is the system that generates the lifeblood of New York's economy. Without heat, light, and power, we cannot operate or maintain our businesses, institutions that provide New Yorkers with good jobs and homes. New York's existing energy infrastructure represents one of the most cost-effective means to meet the demands of the 21st century, and well-designed transmission upgrades will ensure that future load and generation needs are addressed in New York. The Business Council strongly supports elements of the draft energy plan that support the expansion of current energy infrastructure. Upgrades and improvement in transmission and pipelines provide economic benefits for New York's energy consumers through the relief of congestion, the elimination of transmission and elements of the transmission systems, integration and expansion of the additional renewable energy resources on a non-discriminative basis, along with congestion relief. Additionally, new electric transmission lines support existing generation resources that are challenged by transmission congestion, thereby helping to secure existing capacity to aid in system reliability and support the existing vast fuel diversity in New York, one of the most fuel-diverse states in the country, while protecting consumers from commodity pricing. Our members in various forums have committed to significant time and talent to addressing the myriad of public policy issues surrounding climate change. We are concerned that the draft state energy plan doesn't focus enough on the development upon climate policies with co-benefits and instead focuses upon one sector command and control mechanisms, which have not been proven effective at addressing CO2. Additionally, we believe that it is unwise to focus climate policy merely on carbon dioxide to the exclusion of other human influences on the climate system. In fact, early action on a wider range of human influences on climate could be timelier and less costly. The Business Council supports the adoption of climate policies with co-benefits. We support the adoption of climate policies that provide near-term concrete benefits that address climate change. Thus, the primary rationale for the policy goal is to improve the quality of human life, enjoyment, health, economic advantage. Additionally, each of these policy goals would have co-benefits to reduce the scale of human impacts. The draft energy plan should be amended to include a specific initiative dedicated to the advancement and the adoption of more LNG usage in the state of New York. It is time that fear and emotions be put aside and for the state to embrace the facts and hard science. LNG is beginning to be used in rural areas as well as alternatives to propane and heat. Additionally, LNG can meet the demands of New York's distributed generation. The Business Council of the State of New York believes the state energy plan should commit to addressing our energy needs through the advancement of sustainable improvements and, finally, that we support and believe that the state energy plan should specifically commit to the promotion of economic viability of our nuclear power generators and low power carbon alternative energy that nuclear provides, and it has numerous attributes including round-the-clock production, large amounts of electricity to help stabilize the electric grid, clean air compliance, forward electric price stability, and fuel technology diversity, and high-paying jobs at facilities that can withstand extreme natural and man-made events. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Do you know how many times you just contradicted yourself?
Excuse me,
You're right. That was wrong of me. I apologize.
just decorum, please. There's
That's true. Protocol. Thank you.
Dorothy Pomponio, followed by Anthony Guarnieri.
Do you have a business card? 'Cause I can email.
Is Dorothy here? Ms. Pomponio? Is Anthony Guarnieri here?
Yes.
That will be followed by William Houston's second time up.
Hello, I'm Anthony Guarnieri with ASI Energy, and I'm here today to speak about combined heating and power and microgrids and their installation policy challenges that we're working with, specifically with multi-owner situations. I'm here speaking on behalf of NYSP, the Northeast Clean Heat and Power Initiative. An overview of what I would like to present on is a quick definition of combined heating and power and microgrids. I'd like to speak about the program Energize Ithaca Microgrid, a CHP-powered microgrid on the Ithaca Commons. I'd like to address Initiative 3 regarding implementing building codes and standards that will support energy efficiency and clean energy. And then a request for policy development for microgrids and the interconnection thereof to make it easier with code and interconnect requirements for multi-owner situations. Some specific micro interconnect stumbling blocks we want to help clear is what I'm going to end this presentation on. So my business partner Herbert Dwyer and I own sister companies ASI Energy and ASI Renovations. We're an Ithaca-based CHP developer. We're a design, build, finance, operate firm working with energy-efficient technology suited for the best needs of a building. So we work in a holistic situation. We don't represent a technology. Briefly, combined heating and power is a technology that burns a single fuel to produce electricity and hot water. So basically, you scale down a power plant to fit in a boiler room. Natural gas, you can burn bio, you can burn liquid propane, is burned to boil water and spin generators simultaneously to produce electricity and local heat. So instead of the exhaust gas being vented into the atmosphere, it's captured and used to heat hot water. And that hot water is distributed to heat the local buildings. You can think of this technology as a big boiler that captures exhaust gases to spill in an alternator to produce electricity locally. We can also cool with this hot water by running it through an absorption chiller, which in a nutshell produces chilled water for hydronic cooling. So now you're cooling and not using electricity, which is more efficient. There's actually a CHP unit in this building on the first floor. I happened to stumble across it. It's two or three 65 kilowatt microturbines. I'd like to also talk about microgrids. A microgrid is a customer side of the meter electricity and hot water, in this case, generation, energy storage, and load consumption that would normally operate connected to the traditional centralized macrogrid. However, it could stand alone upon itself. This single point of common coupling with the microgrid can be disconnected, and the microgrid can function alone. So when Superstorm Sandy hit and everyone lost power and all the buildings were black, when the buildings that did actually have power, the majority of them were powered by combined heating and power. So this is what I'm speaking on. CHP-powered microgrids and making multiple owner systems easier to install from a building code and interconnect standpoint. I am here speaking on behalf of NYSHP, which is a Northeast Clean Heat and Power Initiative. The organization functions across 7 northeastern states, New England, and New York. As a volunteer association for the past decade, we're a 501c6 nonprofit. We're a business league which shares common interests in developing favorable situations for the technology as a whole to be implemented. Top of page 3. So the board of NYSHP wanted to invite panel members and the general audience to an annual meeting on May 13th at the Empire State Plaza, May 13th, Empire State Plaza. A Google search will probably pull up the rest of the details given the time. NYSHP is interested in having a seat at table discussions, whereas we can speak on behalf of policy and different opinions. After reviewing the New York State Energy Draft Plan, we believe it is an excellent plan, and we're very excited about the many strategies outlined in the Draft Energy Plan that harmonize well with CHP and microgrid. From a CHP and microgrid standpoint, we think the plan is great. We support this plan and look forward to it. We'd also like to thank NYSERDA, the PSC, and Governor Cuomo's office for the incentives and support of the CHP technology that we've recently received, in excess of $140 million in the next 3 years. Initiative 3, building code, interconnect. We want to interconnect multiple owner buildings to a microgrid. So you're probably familiar with the Burstone project. They had some problems with this. So specifically, some of the policies we're interested in working with is the definition of at or near, which was brought up in Burstone, making the possibility of wheeling power through the macro grid to consumers through purchase power agreements or other mechanisms, using essentially, say, NYSEG's transmission lines to purchase power our own energy. We'd like the process for interconnection of multiple buildings and multiple building owners to be set up in a cleaner sort of process, and that's it. The supplemental information is in the rest of the packet. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
So now we have, I've recorded 3 requests for second speaking opportunities. William Houston, Kim Michaels or Mitchells, and Carol Chalk.
Make it 4.
Sure. Can you remind me? Keith Shue. Okay, and Kim may not be here. Just, it's us now, so we get to decide. Should we stick with the 5-minute rule?
I don't think I'm going to need 5 minutes.
Okay, then we'll stick with the 5-minute rule, and if we need a third pass, we'll go to that, but not for you. Thank you.
Thank you. William Houston, Broome County. So one thing I would like to see in the draft energy plan, and I need to do some actual more study of the plan, which is why we're asking for more time. I think there's a lot of people in the same situation that I am. So I didn't, upon a casual glance, I didn't see much having to do with energy conservation. I think that's an important critical part of this, so I'd like to see more on that. Out of the 15 initiatives, there really were a few in there that sounded good to me in terms of support for green energy, renewable energy. One troubling one is the first one. The very first one, one of the goals of the first initiative is fostering economic growth. To quote Edward Abbey, growth is the paradigm of a cancer cell. This is really an obsolete and a failed worldview, and it doesn't match the realities of our world, which has to do with, of course, climate change. And the one thing that I wanted to speak about the first time I was up, and I'm grateful that you're allowing a second time, is peak oil. So climate change really is the biggest problem, because on the horizon is mass extinction. So that's the most serious problem, is climate change. However, peak oil, just peak oil, and very few people are really talking about this, but I'm sure you're all familiar with the theory of peak oil. Basically, the idea is that a single gas or oil well approximately follows a parabolic curve in terms of its production. And this guy called M. King Hubbard came up with a theory. If you aggregate that of all oil fields on planet Earth, that also approximates a parabolic function. So the idea is, at some point, we're going to burn through half of all of the recoverable reserves, and then no matter what we do after that point, we're going to have diminishing reserves. And I think that most people who have studied this problem, scientists, that they aren't in disagreement about whether peak oil is true, but there is some disagreements about whether we've hit a peak, or gas peak, or shale gas peak, or the peaks of various fields. The problem with being on the downside of the peak oil curve is extremely serious, especially when our demand for these fossil fuels, which is embodied in this plan, that's an inflection point. It's a change in the second derivative, or the first derivative, sorry about that, from a positive slope to zero to a negative slope, yet the demand is rising. What we expect to see from this is much higher prices for these fuels. And the other thing has to do with energy returned on energy investment. This is also called by the acronym EROEI. So the ultimate barrier is 1-to-1. That means in the old days, they would spend 1 unit of energy and poke a hole down in Texas somewhere, or in Pennsylvania, and you'd get 100 or 200 units of energy back. Now, typically, in our fuel mix, our EROEI is somewhere around 10-to-1. I'm sorry, 1-to-10 or 1-to-5. The ultimate barrier is 1-to-1. If we spend a unit of energy to get a unit of energy, there's no reason even going for it. And that is called the energy cliff. You don't want to reach the energy cliff. Here's what we need, and this is what is really the point for you all, is that as we approach EROEI 1-to-1, and the practical limit, by the way, for technical reasons is higher than that. We are getting close to the technical limits of energy production. There should be, if we leave it up to the free market, we're going to take this fossil fuel party to the last day if we're going to follow what the market is going to, the bankers and the energy companies, what they want. We're going to take this to the last day, and when it runs out, there's going to be a huge crash. What we need the regulators, that's you all. We need you to form policy that shifts us into the right direction before we hit that critical point, or else we are going to meet with disaster. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't see here, but for the record, Kim Michaels, permissions. Carol Chalk, to be followed by Keith Shue, to be followed by Leonora Meyer.
Thanks for this opportunity. Since you won't have to be here till the announced 7 o'clock, I appreciate that you're willing to use the time. Carol Chalk from the Tompkins County Legislature. I'll just make a personal observation that I think one of the reasons you're seeing such a vehement response from people to the nature of this plan and to some of the energy discussion in New York State can be traced to the kinds of observations that were made in the Moreland Commission, not the one that's been in the news on ethics, but the Storm report. And if you look there on, I think it's in the pages 31 to 37, it might be in the 40s, about process, ex parte communications regarding energy decisions and access that ultimately affect the ratepayer, who are the consumers of what we're trying to do here. Just addressing process needs to be part of any planning. So that's just a personal observation from work that I've done as president of the Ratepayer and Community Interveners Group on Public Service Commission cases. I did want to take time to go back to some of the stuff that I didn't have time to talk about from the Tompkins County resolution that was passed 2 nights ago, which you all now have copies of. I talked about our experience with weather events. I'd also like time to talk about the ways in which we have already experienced and us and communities across the state will experience economic and social impacts from the changes and uncertainties in the energy supply mix and price structures for existing and new sources of energy, unless there's advanced planning. And one of the things that was referred to in the New York State Energy Highway Blueprint that didn't come out in the energy plan, and that I think is really important, because if you look at the energy blueprint, many of the other programs talked about there now have links, those blue links on the website, that take you to an actual program. The one that doesn't still is the Community Transitions Program. It was recommended to be established as part of the Energy Highway Blueprint, and any plan meant to establish bold solutions to new challenges, this is now from a resolution, must meet these challenges with new solutions by making sure that new opportunities and incentives are available in the communities that have built their employment and tax base on the older technologies. Renewable technology incentives should be offered to companies to build in those communities like ours, formerly housing fossil-fueled or nuclear-fueled plants. As we go through, and this is back to me, as we transition to new technologies in any field, when we closed the clothing mills, the towns that didn't develop a plan about how to survive beyond as new technologies moved in to replace those were in trouble. And so unless a plan for New York State addresses that, we'll be in trouble. And we'll never get to a new reality if we don't plan for the communities that will be hurt along the way. And that should be helped to implement green technologies and profit from those. Other things that we referred to in our resolution that we'd like to see revised and addressed in the final plan: tougher building standard and energy efficiency methods, require new buildings to achieve net zero energy use by specific target dates. I'll just give the citation I didn't get to give before. The technology exists now. The potential energy generating capacity using available sources of renewable energy were referred to in several plans now, most notably the Jacobson plan from Stanford. There are 13 authors. Jacobson, 2 of them from Cornell were Bob Howarth and Tony Ingraffia. It was cited, it was published in a journal called Energy Policy Policy, issue 57 in 2013, and the numbers for New York State were updated and can easily be found and looked at in one page at a site called the Solutions Project, solutionsproject.org. They've created a plan for every state, so please read that. Just a few more. Greater level of detail about reductions in demand that it could be achieved through demand response requirements. There's no reason why, in our case, the Nucor steel plant up in Auburn shouldn't be scaling back on the busiest times of the year. One more. Define targets for clean vehicular transportation. And just in conclusion, the draft plan emphasizes, and we agree, with market-based solutions to our energy transition. We believe that a balanced approach that includes also implementation of regulations and tax policies aimed at penalizing polluting energy sources and encouraging efficiency in renewable energy will be necessary ultimately to dramatically change the market in favor of renewable energy and efficiency, especially in time to meet the targets that you've set. So we encourage you, and we think it's doable with existing technologies, and we encourage you to address that in the final plan. And thanks again for this opportunity.
Thank you very much. So Keith Shue to be followed by Leonora Meyer and then Lindsay Powell.
Thank you again for this second opportunity to talk. I appreciate that. I want to talk a little bit about how you, a little bit more technical standpoint, how you calculate the impacts, the climate-driving impacts of methane and carbon dioxide, because this has been talked about a lot today, but I want to discuss it in a little bit more detail. One of the things that I see in this plan is a forecast for if you do consider carbon dioxide equivalency. There's a forecast here that says by 2030 that you can get to 9% below 1990 levels. And basically it's on page 14 of volume 2, Impacts and Considerations. It says New York's forecasted total greenhouse gas emissions are anticipated to decrease by about 2.4 MMT carbon dioxide equivalency from 2011 to reach about 208.5 MMT carbon dioxide equivalency by 2030, or 9% below 1990 levels. So you're forecasting by the year 2030 that you're going to be just 9% below, and that's looking at carbon dioxide equivalency. The reason we have a big problem with looking at just methane is because if I reconcile this with the other claim that's made that you think you can get to a 50% reduction of carbon dioxide only by 2030, then that really tells you this 9% versus that 50%, how much you're not taking into account as it relates to methane. Okay, so getting to 50% reduction by 2030 of carbon dioxide only obviously isn't getting you anywhere close to where you need to be if you're really, that only means 9% of carbon dioxide equivalency in that same time frame. And then obviously you have 71% left to go in the next 20 years after that. So there seems to be a reality problem with that. So I also want to mention that carbon dioxide equivalency itself. There's some defects in looking at that only. When you look at CO2e, I'm assuming you mean the EPA acknowledged multiplier factor, which is about 21. Basically, that methane has a climate driving effect that's 21 times worse than carbon dioxide. We know from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change that number really is more like 33 over a 100-year time frame. But what really matters too is what happens over that 20-year time frame. So that 20-year time frame where we know that the multiplier effect is 86 times worse, that makes all the difference. As has been said a few times here today, we don't have 100 years to deal with this problem. The 20-year time frame is absolutely critical. We have good science that says that we are closely approaching this temperature thresholds whereby we'll reach 2 degrees Celsius Celsius increase, 2 or 3 degrees Celsius increase. And when that happens, we're in a hysteresis effect where the climate, the globe can't recover. It'll be thousands of years before we get back. So we have to very quickly bring our emissions under control. And so what happens in the next 20 years is absolutely critical. So I would suggest that when you look at CO2e, you need to look at something else, maybe call it CO2e plus, something that actually looks at what that impact is over the 20-year time frame. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Leonora Meyer, and then Lindsay Powell, and then I believe another request just came in.
Hello, my name is Leonora Meyer. I'm an alumni of Syracuse University. The New York Energy Plan should include, start all over again. Okay. Hello, I'm Leonora Meyer. I'm an alumnus of Syracuse University. The New York Energy Plan should include many more renewables because they're getting better, more efficient, with exciting designs. A new design is a three-dimensional one that is 2 times to more than 20 times more powerful output than flat solar panels with the same base area. It goes like this. Tell me if you've seen this. Have you seen the new solar panels? It looks like this. Yes. How many have seen that? New solar panel. It's not flat, but it has the shape of an accordion design. Have any of you seen that before?
Yes.
You've seen it? Okay, great. Okay. It's an accordion shape that rises vertically on the roof. This design picks up the sunlight early in the morning, at sunrise, and later in the afternoon at sunset, and in winter, something that flat panels cannot do. MIT tested these panels on the roofs with great success. From MIT News magazine, 3D Solar, A New Dimension in Photovoltaics by David Chandler, June 19, 2012. With innovations such as these, one can see a grand opening into the solar age, and it is an exciting time. I hope New York State Energy Plan studies this plan and other innovations and includes them in its energy plan. The New York State Energy Plan should also assist DIY, do-it-yourselfers, who wish to assemble their own solar or wind energy projects. Online could be a free website that assists homeowners to make solar panels, etc., for their home or duplex. The directions should be written simply and clearly for the non-scientist. Another example for heating innovation is the building we are in now. They use wood pellets from willows. It not only heats this building, but it heats an adjacent building. Nuclear should be phased out due to the danger of radioactivity. Fukushima is an example. And we have a similar plant in Oswego, New York, of a similar design that could be potentially very dangerous. Fracking, liquefied natural gas, and storage tanks should be banned in New York. According to Scientific American, radioactivity is from wastewater is 267 times the allowable rate. It can cause cancer and leukemia. For future plans, let's invite experts from Europe to give lectures who can help us formulate our renewable energy plan and transportation plan. Let's have a great time and a great century in the 21st century in renewables and try to stop global warming. Thank you.
Thank you very much.